Garden Success is brought to you in part by Martha's Bloomers, celebrating 25 years in Central Texas and offering gardeners a variety of plants grown for the region, along with a wide assortment of tools, potting containers, and a full-service restaurant. Martha's Bloomers, located on Highway 6 in Navasota.
Welcome to Garden Success with Stephen Brueggerhoff, the show designed to help you have a bountiful garden and a beautiful landscape. And now, Texas A&M AgriLife Extension horticulturist Stephen Brueggerhoff.
Well, howdy, friends, and welcome to Garden Success. It's another spectacular day. It's nice and clear. If you think it's hot now, just wait another week, right? It's sustained, and it's a little uncomfortable right now. You know, I just talked to some friends a few moments ago, and as well as some colleagues up around Vernon, Texas. I think that's up in North Texas. And I was complaining about the heat, 100 plus, 100 degrees here consistently for about at least the next week. And they said, you have nothing on us. We had 106 sustained. So my blessings to our folks on the Oklahoma border. I wish them well, and I think they'll be able to muster through. It is getting a little hot, so that means you need to take care of yourself, your plants, your family first. Your family, what is it? Family, pets, plants, etc. House comes in there somewhere. Just take care of yourself and make sure that you're measuring how your activity out in the garden. Well, today is a recorded program, but we're really pleased to have as a guest host on this program, Hannah Ayala. Hannah is the head diagnostician at the Texas Plant Disease Diagnostic Lab here on campus. She leads daily operations and oversees all diagnostic process at the lab. I'd like to welcome Hannah. Hannah, welcome to the program.
Howdy. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. This is part of our collaborative effort. We're having staff from the diagnostic lab on a monthly basis, about every third Thursday of the month, to explore different aspects of what you do best. I kind of dabble, and I have some skills, but you're the real deal.
Thank you.
Of course. So, Hannah, I was able to ask Hannah a few questions prior to the program today, and of course we're going to address some things that are happening at the lab, and as well as what your interests are for your backyard, your neighbors, your neighborhood, etc. We can only help the things that we know how to properly diagnose. If there's something going wrong, what do you do? Well, Hannah, is there any topic that anything that we need to be aware of that has come across your desk at the lab?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say consistently what we've been seeing in the lab pretty much all year and definitely this summer is root rot issues. Not only do we see Phytophthora issues, but also cotton root rot is a concern for some, especially in the northern counties where the soil is really conducive for that pathogen to grow. But Phytophthora root rot, if you are overwatering your grass, you're also overwatering your trees. And trees, native trees and, established trees, they don't particularly like to be soaked all the time. And so what happens is those fine roots are going to be, really squishy, and they're going to be weakened because they're suffocating from all that water. And then that leaves them susceptible to the pathogen that lives in your soil, which Phytophthora root rot, some people want us to test their soil, and I'm telling them, it's there, it's probably there. But unfortunately, or fortunately actually, it will not infect your plant unless your plant is stressed. That's kind of the the deal with the pathogen in the plant. They're in that battle for survival. So when your plant is weakened, when it's suffocating, that's when you're going to get infection. So yeah, Phytophthora is there, just like germs in humans. Like germs are there, like everywhere. Maybe if you lick the bottom of your shoe today and you're really healthy, maybe you won't get sick. But if you're really stressed out and you lick the bottom of your shoe, you're probably going to get sick.
Right. So it's all the stress that the plant is undergoing, environmental stressors, other stressors that we're applying to it by additional watering.
Right.
That's a really good point, especially now when we're concerned of the plants are wilting a little bit naturally. A natural response to plants is a little bit of loss of water. And sometimes that's a little bit of wilting, but it doesn't necessarily mean we have to throw water on the plant itself.
Right. Watering's not always the answer. Yes, right now when it's really hot and it's really dry here, yes, it does need a little bit of water. But, when it's raining, you can turn those sprinklers off.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a colleague. I still have a colleague. You're my colleague. Greg Grant's a colleague as well. Dr. Grant up in Smith County, he gave a talk recently on post-oak decline in the area. We're in this larger vegetative zone, larger vegetative region that's part of the post-oak savanna. And his take on it is, these plants don't like disturbance. There's a lot of I've had a neighbor, for instance. I had a neighbor in a neighborhood that I was in here in College Station when we first got here. He'd been here since the 1970s, and he had an old post oak that just tanked on him within the past couple of years. And he asked, "Why is that?" And I told him, it's nothing that you've done. There's nothing that you can do for that particular plant. It aged out, possibly. Plus, there's all of these environmental stressors that we're undergoing currently, and post oaks don't respond very well.
Right, exactly. Especially in a drought, they'll get hypoxylin canker. You'll see some of those fungal mats on the trees. But yeah, for post oaks, we actually have a fact sheet online about post oak decline, because you're right, there are so many different factors that can lead to that decline. And with our weather being so extreme these days, these past years with like freezes and then 100+ degree weather, drought, you're getting stress. Like no matter what you're doing, it's not you particularly, it is the environment as well.
It ain't you.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah, exactly. You're not the problem always.
Sometimes you just win the lottery, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point. There are fact sheets available to folks through AgriLife Learn. There's free downloads, I think. Extension, this is a message to residents that are listening to the program. Extension right now is undergoing a more efficient way of getting fact sheets to you. Right now it's AgriLife Learn, but I think they're looking at another platform called My Texas, and that's where some of these free downloads, you won't have to go through AgriLife Learn to go through a 3-step process to download something.
Right.
But there are many different fact sheets that are available to the public through AgriLife Learn regarding disease identification, diagnosis, and treatment as well. Absolutely,
yes. We are working to update those fact sheets, when new information comes out, and working with Dr. Stephanie Adams, our tree and landscape pathologist in the Department of Plant Pathology and Microbiology, and she is helping us put out more fact sheets too as new issues arise and things that are unfortunately popular, the things that are happening more often. We are going to try and put those out too. So look out for those, and if you ever stop by the clinic, we have printed copies, and we'd be happy to give those out.
This is a good opportunity where is your lab located on campus?
We are located in the furthest west campus, pretty much, you can get besides getting to Rellis. We're in Research Park, which is right off of University and 2818, or Harvey Mitchell. And we are in the Centec building. That's 1500 Research Parkway, Suite A130. So we accept walk-ins from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. We're closed for lunch, but we are there from Monday through Friday.
Oh, fantastic. A great resource, especially to residents, if they have an issue and I can't help them out. I do recommend that they bring in samples to the lab as well. And we follow the protocol that y'all have laid out for us. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we have updated our website so that plant sampling can be a little bit easier. We try to describe if you're seeing symptoms or certain tests that you want. There is plant sampling tab with some pictures, but mostly descriptions of the plant samples that need to be taken.
Okay. Oh, that's excellent. What a wonderful resource. I think it's in this. I think I've been in the parking lot when Monty, one of our colleagues, is selling pecans. So, folks, if you've ever gone to get pecans in November, you're right next to that building. Right?
Yes, in the same parking lot. Yeah, just stop. You can get pecans and then drop off a sample. Same trip.
There you go. We did have an opportunity to talk a little bit as well. So, Hannah, you said that there's additional challenges that you've been seeing increasing in the area. I think one of them was nematodes infestation in certain crops.
Yes. So we have seen in some garden vegetables, some people see that they're wilting. Specifically, what I had just seen was a tomato. It was grown in, just a regular garden bed. But if you have sandier soils or, soils with more air pockets basically in them, you are susceptible to nematodes. Nematodes are little vermiform animals. So they look like worms, but they're actually microscopic animals. And the plant-parasitic nematodes have a mouth piece called a stylet, and they go to the roots and they will use that mouthpiece to take out the nutrients and basically feed on those roots. So if you're overwatering, they can only move with water. So a lot of that. So what we've been seeing is if your plant is wilting and you've tried not watering it or you've tried overwatering it, maybe pull up one of the plants in your garden and see if there's little nodules on the roots. This doesn't work for legumes, obviously, because of the nitrogen fixing, but for something like a tomato, if you see nodules, then it could possibly be a nematode problem.
Okay. And let's say someone does have evidence of nematodes at least for a couple of years in a row, and they're seeing more plants affected. What is an effective method for our residents to know about? How can they treat that?
So this would just be a cultural methods only. So you'd need to plant resistant plants or, tolerant plants, to nematodes, because unfortunately there are no nematicides available commercially to homeowners. It's really just they're very harmful to the environment. They're harmful to human health. So these are things that a professional would need to apply, but it's really only recommended for large fields. So we recommend things like solarization. If you have like a smaller garden bed, what you could do is you can trap it under some plastic and basically heat them up and kill them that way. Or just plant something that won't be susceptible to those nematodes.
That's a really good idea. I love my tomatoes, and we haven't seen any in one section of the garden. We have a demonstration garden off of Highway 21. Some beds we have never seen a problem with that. One of them we do see recurrence of nematodes in there. So soil solarization, certainly. I've asked my master gardeners who are managing those plots. I've asked them go ahead and put out a trap crop like Elbon rye to at least isolate the population and then turn them over. Mm-hmm. So, soil solarization as well. I did see a product on the market, but I am not recommending this. But it had saponins in it, and it was being advertised as working for you in helping to reduce nematode populations. But after talking to colleagues like yourself, I'm like, that's just not practical. It's not.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I just learned about nematodes. Thank goodness. Thank you. Shout out to the University of Florida at Gainesville. They trained me. They have a nematode detection lab,
Really?
the nematode diagnostic lab. Yes, and they trained me And some people are doing some research on nematicides. I know some are looking at new biologicals that could degrade the cuticle of the nematodes, but that's early research right now. That's really just talks, but that's something to look forward to in the future, as something biological, something more natural.
I gotcha. So cultural is the way to go. Trap crop or solarization as well.
Actually, while we're on the topic of vegetables, I just thought of another interesting sample that we got. We got a tomato and a pepper, and they both were diagnosed with tomato spotted wilt virus. Yes. So they had this, in my opinion, I know this is not beautiful to other people, but they had what I think is a beautiful mosaic pattern. And unfortunately, viruses, a lot of them can cause stunting. So that's what they were seeing, this mosaic pattern on their leaves, and then stunting of their vegetables. So unfortunately, the only thing that you can do with a virus is throw away that crop. But something I did want to spread, I'm sure a lot of people know this, but if you don't, tobacco mosaic virus, which is one of the first recorded viruses, it is found in most tobacco products, like cigarettes specifically. And this is why they ask you not to smoke around greenhouses, is because the tobacco mosaic virus is in that cigarette, probably. And then it's highly transmissible. So if you're touching that cigarette and you touch a plant, then that plant is a host of tobacco mosaic virus, it is likely to get tobacco mosaic virus from you touching it and having touched a cigarette. So just shout out to anybody who's don't touch random cigarette butts on the ground and then go touch tomatoes.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's something that I learned early on, and I thought that was just a PSA to people.
So the virus itself is retained within the tissue that you're working with.
Yes.
It's still in the leaf tissue.
It's still in the leaf tissue, even in cigarettes. Actually, what we do on some demonstrations is when we want to show people how an immunostrip, and an immunostrip is basically a pregnancy test for plant viruses or other pathogens. But so it has the two lines if it's positive, and one line if it's negative. And when we want to show that test to people, we buy cigarettes. Good luck explaining that to purchasing, but we buy those cigarettes and then we put that in our test, and it does show up positive for tobacco mosaic virus.
That's fascinating. I'll have to be present when you have that demonstration sometime.
Oh yes, I will let you know next time we do it.
That sounds so cool. Well, I mean, it's cool to us, but it's not a pleasant thing to go through for the actual homeowner. So they just got to take that plant out of there. Is there another vector that can transmit that virus?
Yes, insects. Your infected tools. Always sanitize your tools in between your plants. Use a 20% bleach solution, or if you don't want it to rust, you can use an alcohol solution. I've heard also the spray Lysol.
Yes.
Yes, that can work equally as well as a disinfectant. But yeah, basically anything touching it. So insects, tools, people, those are all vectors. Even nematodes can be vectors for some viruses.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
That's fascinating. Cleanliness is next to, I don't know, gardeniness. I've tried to make a pun out of it. One word. But that is just fascinating. So folks, that's a good message to you if we're encouraging you that sanitation is part of the success in your garden. Certainly we mean it, and these are the reasons why. I have pruned plant. I guess I'm not supposed to confess. This is not a confessional, right? But I've taken pruners and worked between plants before, but it's always best practice not to do that, to disinfect them if you're pruning in between plants. Roses, vegetables, other ornamental plants that you're working with. It's just great practice. So thank you for that information. And of course, we want y'all to be healthy, so no smoking.
Right. That's really, yeah, that's really what I'm trying to say.
You also mentioned that y'all were seeing an uptick in, or the potential uptick for oak wilt in the state or in the region?
In the state, we've seen it a lot in North Texas, unfortunately. I think mainly because they're testing a lot up there, because it is kind of newer. It's mostly, established, unfortunately, in the hill country. So San Antonio, Austin area, we know that there's oak wilt centers there, but it is popping up now, spreading into the northern region. And unfortunately, we've seen it in some host oaks that I have really never seen it on before, like, for example, a post oak. I think this is the first post oak I've ever seen working in the lab, almost a decade of, actual positive post oak wilt.
Yes.
Yeah, so very unfortunate. But that's another thing to look out for. The symptoms, for post oaks, I don't even really see those online, but I guess it kind of looks more like a white oak. So it has like a not marginal necrosis, but a necrosis at the edge of the leaf, kind of like a red oak does.
Yes.
Yes, so something to watch out for in North Texas. We're also working on molecular diagnostics in our lab, so I'm hoping to get that up really quickly soon, and we're gonna put that on our website and probably advertise it on our social media when that's ready. But instead of having your report ready in 3 to 4 weeks, we're hoping to get them done in a week.
Oh my, that's a quick turnaround. It really is. I've been called out this was when I was in Brazoria County. So folks, we're in Brazos County. Brazoria County is south of us. Think of, between Lake Jackson and Houston, that kind of area. If you've ever been to Pearland, it's south of Pearland, north of Lake Jackson, etc. Anyway, I did have, during my 5-year tenure there, I did have some residents that would say, hey, I think I've got oak wilt. And I'd go to their property. Just by visual diagnosis, it was obvious, a few of them, 3 out of 5 were not. But the 2 that I didn't know, I didn't have the skills for, I said, you got to send this into a lab. We'll help you do that. Unfortunately, y'all do have instructions that you provide to agents, as well as that you have online, to be able to guide people into submitting a sample.
Yes. So currently what we do is we do a culturing method. And I just like to explain to people, I was doing this earlier today. It's very physical. We take the branches, we recommend about 1 inch to 2 inches in diameter, about 6 inches in length at least at the minimum, because the pathogen does not grow uniformly in the branch. So our best chance is to get more surface area. And what I do, unfortunately this past week, not allowed, but my student workers have been on vacations because I wanted them to enjoy the last of their summer with their families. But that's unfortunate for me because I've been doing everything by myself, which, shout out to me. I did. But what it is we take those branches, very large branches, and I strip off the bark down to the sapwood, and then I take a chisel and I cut them into strips, and then I cut those strips into little 4-5 centimeter chips, and then bleach them, rinse them in sterile distilled water, and then plate them onto specialized media. And then the incubation period is 2 weeks because of the way that the fungus grows. It's kind of slow growing, and so we morphologically identify it from that culture.
Oh,
so that it's a very laborious, intensive process, which is why it takes so long. So that's why the molecular, we're only going to have to do the first part, and instead of waiting for culture, we're going to be able to extract the DNA from the wood. And if the fungus is there, then we'll be able to detect it and give faster results.
Oh my goodness, that's fascinating. I didn't know it was that much of an intensive, a labor of love to try to, ascertain what is going on. That's incredible.
I enjoy doing it. When you're getting frustrated in lab, you can't figure out what a pathogen is in your leaf. Just go do an oak wilt. Get out some of that rage. You're taking the mallet. But yeah, so I enjoy it, and I enjoy my work. This is not to discourage people from sending in samples. It's more of thank you for being patient with us as we process your samples.
Of course, that kind of diagnosis just takes time. Some of it does. Some of it's a little bit more quicker turnaround, but
Yes, yeah. I love a good obvious sample. I love rust, seeing Cercospora. It's there. I know what it is.
Yeah, right on. Wow, that's a great lead in. So, folks, you can always send me an email, gardensuccess@tamu.edu. If we can't figure out things together, I always want you to send in an image along with the descriptor of what's going on. If you do send in a description, be very detailed, or we'll have 3 or 4 conversations through email, and then, we'll try to get at what's going on. But a picture is worth 1,000 words, especially a very clear picture. And as Hannah had pointed out earlier, diagnosis occurs with all viewpoints, right? So if you've got a close-up of an image, I've got this lovely picture of a leaf with spotting on it, which leads us into Cercospora. But that may be one of an entire tree. You've got a tree that's succumbing to, you think it's undergoing some sort of a stressor that's being expressed by discoloration on the leaves, what we call gummosis, right? A little bit of this nasty looking weeping out of the trunk itself. Just all viewpoints, so that it would give us a better idea of what potentially is going on. And of course, if we can't figure it out together, I will forward to our friends, our colleagues at the Diagnostic Lab, as well as other specialists that have a little bit more skills than I do. But speaking of Cercospora, so what is Cercospora?
Cercospora is a fungus, and it does cause a leaf spot. So the way that it works is it's spread by water splashing. So again, it happens when your plant is stressed, right? And it will be able to invade those the weakened tissues of your leaves. And this happens mostly in high humidity. So if you have, extended leaf wetness, which we can't always help if it's raining, but what you can help is watering in the morning so that your leaves have time to dry. And that will help the fungus not grow as much, or inhibit its growth because there's no water for it to create spores. Under a microscope, to me it looks like kind of a bush coming out of it's like a hand coming out of the leaf, and the little spores look like little fingers almost. So I really like seeing it. But yeah, we have seen that on crepe myrtles coming through, and I just told the grower suggested to me, which I was like, yeah, that's perfect, is to trim the canopy a little bit. So if it's really, really full and you're having this problem, it can spread very quickly to the other leaves. But if you kind of increase that air circulation by pruning, sanitizing your tools in between trees. But yes, if you sanitation prune and you kind of prune out thin the canopy a little bit, it can help alleviate some of those symptoms, alleviate some of the problem.
Well, one of the pictures that I brought with me, folks, and I showed to Hannah, it's of a crepe myrtle, and it is expressing some of that damage caused by Cercospora, kind of a spotting. You'll see it sometime. The crepe myrtle itself, foliage will sometimes turn reddish colored. I've had this happen in my yard. I had a client, a resident, that sent me an email. His name is JD, so shout out to JD if you're listening. And he was concerned. He said, "What's going on? Is this going to kill my plant?" The crepe myrtle that I have at home, it's a legacy plant. It came with the property, and it's maybe 3 to 4 years old. Do you have a recommendation for, not really treatment? I guess that's really, the practicality of the situation. If it's a mature tree, can it withstand that kind of damage?
It could withstand that kind of damage. if it's not too widespread, especially for younger trees, it's probably more susceptible because if, the leaves are all clustered together and it completely defoliates, you might not get that photosynthesis and the tree won't start producing. But a mature tree, I think, could sustain an infection for sure. What I would recommend if you're okay with using chemicals and you wanted to use it is in the springtime before it leaves out again. I would use probably a systemic fungicide, just because if it's a mature tree, you aren't going to get that good of contact fungicide. So I would probably recommend a systemic fungicide. And then, thinning of that canopy. So that's my management recommendations usually for Cercospora, and not overhead water. Well, mature trees, you're not overhead watering. But yes. I did actually run into a woman at TNLA, the expo, and I was telling her, oh, you're not supposed to water the leaves. You're really supposed to water the roots of your plants. And she goes, oh, and she goes, how much am I supposed to water? And I was like, oh, you don't have to water every single day for like 30 minutes. That's, probably excessive. And she goes, that's what I've been doing. I only water the leaves of my plants, and I only water I water for so long. And I thought that that's what they needed. And she goes, is that why they all died? And I was like, well, I couldn't tell you that, but, yes. But it's a possibility.
It's a big possibility. Oh my goodness. Yes. Well, hopefully we were able to steer that ship.
Yes, she seemed very grateful she said she was going to try again, and I encouraged that.
So water, we get back to water, trying to conserve water, but also apply it responsibly, for the benefit of our plants, the health of our plants as well. We, this particular image I took off another website, but it's really close to what my client had showed me. And the email that he sent literally was right around early summer. We just came off of a really good rain is a distant memory now, but we had a really good time with that. And so it was increased humidity, and I'm not surprised he was seeing that as well. But for JD, he did the tree. He was the image that he was showing me was of a mature tree, and I can now tell him just it's okay.
Yeah, it will be okay. Yes.
So fungicides in this case are used as a preventative rather than a curative.
Pretty much all fungicides I recommend are preventative rather than curative. It's easier for you to prevent something from happening than to fix it. So I pretty much always tell people at this time of year, I don't even know if I would put down any fungicide because it's coming to the fall. And it's also hot. So, I don't know, you could get really bad chemical damage, actually, if there's not enough water with the chemical that you're applying. So this is another thing we've seen is herbicide damage. Chemical damage. And sometimes that manifests as like the proliferation, of leaves. So it's abnormal leaf growth. Because if you misapply chemicals or you apply them late in the season, sometimes you can get that damage.
Yes. I had a conversation with a guy yesterday. He was telling me all the things. He was asking me why his lawn was dying, and I proceeded to tell him. And then he proceeded to tell me I was wrong and told me what his observations of what was going on. But one of the things that he did mention was continued use of fungicides. And I was like, well, not a good idea.
No.
Back off of that, so.
Yeah. And especially if you're continuing the use of the same fungicide, that can be really dangerous. Not only can... you could be wasting money if it's not working. Why keep doing the same thing over and over if it's not working? But also you can get fungicide resistance. Yes. And so that's when, your fungus is just immune to it. You take the same thing over and over again, it's going to build up its defenses because what's left over is the stuff that is resistant to it, right? And then that's just going to multiply and multiply. So what I recommend too is to change fungicides. If you're going to do a rotation, rotate between two different kinds of fungicides. So there's this thing called a FRAC code. FRAC stands for Fungicide Resistance Action Committee. And they have these different codes, which are the modes of action in which fungicides work. So if you rotate between the FRAC codes, between the modes of action of the different fungicides, then you're attacking different parts of it. So you're not creating that resistance. So that's also something that I recommend. So when I write my reports, I provide active ingredients, different active ingredients, and maybe I could. That's a great suggestion to myself to add the FRAC codes so that you can rotate those.
Oh, fantastic! That's great awareness, at least for the residents. So, folks, if you have an issue and we need to address it with a fungicide, call us first. Maybe we can help to guide you down the golden path of least resistance.
Yes.
I finally get to use that in conversation. That's fantastic. Now, there's another pathogen that we talked about, nematodes, of course. I mentioned that we do have it out at our garden, and we're trying to deal with it. When I was working in Galveston County, we never identified what nematode there was. There's different species, folks, that you may get infested by. There may be some that are, well, anyway, I'm not going to start talking about it because I don't know what I'm talking about as far as, the world of nematodes. But we did have an infestation, continual infestation at our demonstration garden in Galveston County. It was more than one bed. Here in Brazos County, there's one bed that we've identified, and we're dealing with that. In Galveston County, it literally is sandier soils. Still there's still this hard pan clay if you don't dig down too much, but too far. But they've had more challenges in some of the beds, and they just kind of tackling them as they get to them with soil solarization. That's the method they're using.
Yes, and if you ever want to send in to identify which nematodes there are, you can send in a soil sample. We recommend, basically a sandwich size bag if you can. At least we say 500 cc's, which is about, 500 milliliters of soil sample. And then that's the only thing we test soil for is for nematodes.
Okay, well, thank you for that. That's good information for our residents. Well, folks, I'm really, just to let y'all know, I'm interviewing Hannah Ayala. She is the head diagnostician at the Texas Plant Disease Diagnostic Lab here on campus at Texas A&M University campus. They are open to the public, and what I mean by that is if you have a sample, if you're directed to submit a sample, bringing it into their lab, certainly they are open for that. There's no tours of the lab per se. It's not, it's a working lab, so but the public is invited to come and explore the resources that y'all have, as well as submit samples as well.
Absolutely. And if there are any county extension agents that would like to tour the lab, we welcome our county extension agents and master gardeners to reach out. But yes, during the off season. But yeah, we are a public lab, so we accept samples from anybody, everybody, government, homeowners, landscape companies. Those are mostly who we get our samples from.
Excellent. And talking to Dr. Ong, yes, there's a busy season. When is the busy season, Hannah?
The busy season is when the plants are growing. So I think we got one slow month this year because it was a pretty mild winter.
Yeah, what was it, January? Probably.
Yeah, around January we weren't getting so much, but this past week I think we're already at our 3,100th sample as of today. Yes. So it's only August. So we actually were averaging about 3,000 samples before the pandemic. And then lately, in this past couple of years, we've been averaging about 5,000. So I think we got 40 samples the other day when,
oh my goodness.
Yes. So, it's been very busy. I've been, working really hard to get all those samples out, but, it's been really nice it's actually nice to be busy.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. It makes the day go by fast.
Yes, it does. Plus, you get to interact with some very fascinating organisms.
Oh,
Sure.
yes.
Yeah.
This is my favorite thing in the whole wide world. Yeah, I love this. I love my job.
Once in a while, I'll get a surprise. A resident will bring in a sample. Unfortunately, I can identify most of what I get into the office. One was, what did I call it? A moving cotton ball. Basically, it was a mealybug infestation on his plant. And I told the client, this is going to be this persistence in trying to control this particular insect. He had it on a containerized hibiscus.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, vigilance, do what you can now. It's going to be difficult to treat it adequately. Even I've read that there's very limited success with applying a systemic, for mealybug control. So I just told him, hang on and just spray them off as best you can. Try to take them off with a little bit of alcohol and a wipe,
Yeah, I totally agree. It is really hard because of their life cycle. So, even if you get a systemic, there's still going to be crawlers and you just, it's really hard to control scales in mealybugs. Yeah.
It is. Just hang on.
Yeah, just hang on. I know I have a beautyberry, and unfortunately...
Oh, your beautyberry.
My beautyberry got scale, and I just threw it away.
Is it in the ground?
No.
Or is it the native shrub, American beautyberry?
Yes, American beautyberry, and it's not in the ground. It was in a pot. I received it as a gift, so unfortunately had to get rid of it. But it really only happened because I was actually drought stressed. Because I hadn't watered it in a little bit, and then all of a sudden all the leaves were gone and I got all this scale. Yeah. So unfortunate, but yes, it's really hard to get rid of. That's why even I wasn't able to deal with it, or I didn't have the capacity to deal with it.
Yeah, I understand completely. Well, if you do get another one, hopefully you'll be able to. I've got one in the backyard. They're gorgeous plants. I just love them. Mine did produce quite a clusters of berries off of it. I put it in the ground earlier this year, and it's responding really well to the placement of it. This is about the first year that I've learned that when the leaf-footed bugs get off of your tomatoes, they go for your beautyberry berries.
Oh no!
As well. So it's neither here nor there. I don't have as beautiful clusters of those fuchsia berries as we like. Well, folks, if you have an opportunity, look up the term American beautyberry. It's a native shrub here in Texas. It has, I would say, it has a fairly large distribution. You'll see it in East Texas. You will see it in Central Texas. It does perform best in well-draining soils. It is slightly drought tolerant. It can handle it in full sun. Mine's out in full sun now. It's shade tolerant, may not bloom for you in full shade, but once you do put it in the ground, give it some room. We want to prune it to its natural, elegant beauty, its shape, and it produces these clusters of bright. What is the color of that?
It's like purpley fuchsia.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful color.
It's gorgeous. Yeah, so. It's forever home. Let's put it that way. If you find a spot in your backyard and the plant really likes it, then go ahead and leave it there. But mine's performing well, and of course, sometimes even horticulturists and diagnosticians can forget to water plants every once in a while.
Yeah, and I did leave it in a container, and that could have contributed to how bad the roots got to, just because it got too hot because it was in full sun in a container I didn't water it. Just the trifecta of killing it.
It's an accidental experiment, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
Well, folks, we're about 15 minutes up to the top of the hour. I wanted to take an opportunity to mention a few programs that are upcoming in your area. Of course, if you have an opportunity on the weekends, you've heard me say this before, support your local businesses. Maybe get out to the Brazos County Farmers Market off of Via Maria Road. They have vendors out there that are wonderful to socialize. If you do nothing else, just get out there, talk to the vendors. You don't have to buy anything, right? I go for the sourdough bread. But anyway, it's a great opportunity to get to know what's going on in your community as well. Aggieland Farmers Market, that's down at Post Oak Mall in the parking lot. Of course, it's a little bloody hot right now. That means wear a hat, a bucket hat. Doesn't matter. You can look like a fool. Just make sure that you're covered.
And sunscreen.
And sunscreen. I almost forgot. Yes, sunscreen. And, of course, protect your eyes, protect yourself, maybe send somebody else to go for you. Explore that on your own. On August the 22nd, there is a program called How to Properly Prune Trees, and that is sponsored by the Native Plants. No, it's sponsored by Martha's Bloomers down in Navasota. No admission for that, How to Properly Prune Trees. It's being presented by Megan Ward from Tree Preservation Group. She'll be talking about best practices for pruning, common Southeast Texas tree pests and how to ID them, and then practical strategies for maintenance. That's August the 22nd, starting at 11 a.m. Of course, go online, look up Martha's, and see when it's going to happen and what else you can explore while you're in Navasota. And then, of course, our signature family-friendly event in September. This is just a shout out to mark your calendars. September the 26th, Wings in the Garden. This is a popular family-friendly event that we hosted many, many years ago and sponsored by our Brazos County Master Gardeners. It's a family-friendly event. We're focusing on pollinators. And so if you do have children that you'd like to bring to that, encourage them to wear a pollinator costume. We won't have some for you to wear. You've got to have them bring them. But we'd love for y'all to buzz on through the garden and explore some of the exhibits that we have, explore the garden with us. Of course, for the adults who like to live vicariously through their children, you can always ask us questions. We're there to answer any kind of gardening questions that you have. Again, folks, we have Hannah Ayala from the Texas Plant Disease Diagnostic Lab that's joining us today, and we will be back next month and hosting the Ask the Plant Doctor. That is, I'm stalling because I'm trying to look up the actual date. But anyway, it's the third Thursday in September, and we'd love for you to join us every week, but specifically to join us on those programs. Well, getting back to another client that had sent in an email, and I did have a picture that I showed to Hannah briefly before we started this program today. It's a persimmon, and the gentleman was mentioning, well, I'll read to you. Nope, this was a phone call, but he did send me a picture. I've got the proof is in the pudding. I've got a picture right here. It's a great picture, and thank you very much for that. There's some leaves on the persimmon. The leaves themselves, the foliage, has what we call marginal necrosis. There's a little bit of dieback on the edges of the leaves. I'll also, if you'll remind me, I also have a persimmon at home that's just not doing well, but enough of me. This particular picture in this client has some foliage with some marginal necrosis, but if we could explore that just for a moment.
Absolutely. So I was looking at the picture that you've shown us, and yes, there is that marginal necrosis. And I also recommend when people send pictures to send a picture kind of zoomed out of the tree and the landscape, as well as your symptomatic material, because from the picture, it doesn't look like a lot of the other branches have the same symptoms, which is good, and it means that there is probably a bottleneck of resources in that branch. So what I mean by that is there could be, damage to that branch, or what we call a canker. There could be a canker is when there is a wound in the tree, and sometimes fungi can get into it, or this is just the tree will compartmentalize it. But any wound could be an entrance point for a pathogen. And if there is a fungal pathogen or a canker that is in that branch or in one of the twigs, it can clog basically the tissues and start degrading the tissues so that there are no water and nutrients reaching the rest of that branch. And the first place you're going to see that is in the leaves. And so that's where I would say something is happening. I would follow that branch and look for any wounds, and go ahead, and you could probably prune that one out But if this was something that was happening to the whole tree, then I would say that the bottleneck of resources is probably happening at the trunk. So probably at the crown, at the root level, because it is being exhibited all over. So that's where I would look into a root rot issue or some sort of drought issue, anything that is affecting the root area. So we in the lab call that like a site-specific root-related issue, is when we see those symptoms, but we can't figure out exactly what's wrong. So yes, that's my advice, is to look for any damage to that branch. And then if not, then I would look into a root issue.
Okay. Well, for this gentleman, I did have a chance to look at some of the fruit in another image. And of course, I told Hannah that I didn't make a copy of the other image, but the other side of the tree itself, the canopy looked decent. It didn't have the same kind of symptoms on it, but the fruit didn't seem to be infected either. I'm growing Asian persimmon at home. The former owners, the people we bought the property from, they didn't leave a list of what varieties of trees we have. So I've had to guess at what it is. What I have is not fuyu. It's not a variety called fuyu. But on my tree, I feel like I'm stopping you in the grocery store, right? You're the plant doctor. Hey, I've got this fruit tree, Anyway, so I've got this fruit that does have kind of a black spotting around it as well. Fortunately, it's not. It did get to maturity, so I could actually enjoy the fruit, but I did see a little bit of localized spotting on persimmon. Is that quite common for persimmon, or?
That's a great question. I actually don't see that many persimmons, but I have seen the black spotting on some of them. This was, when you took it off the tree or was on the tree?
While it was still on the tree, starting to go into while it was starting to get to the point of ripening. It is an astringent variety, so I had to let it fully ripen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that was there. What was the climate? What was the weather like around that time?
Oh, gosh. Similar to now, actually. Not as hot, but, similar conditions as we're experiencing now.
Okay, so it was hot, and the fruit was developing. Yeah. So sometimes, that fruit can be a little susceptible because it is growing, it's fleshy tissue. It could be insect damage, it could be a fungal issue, it could be, something abiotic, something biotic. Yeah, it's really hard to tell. It's really hard to tell when people describe it to me, because I'm like, oh, it could be so many things.
I'm an example of what not to do, right? Or encourage me to provide more information. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I try to ask a lot of questions, like a real doctor, or like a human doctor. Yeah.
That's excellent. Well, for our client and resident who provided the image of persimmon, we're guessing. Right. I mean, we're estimating that it's localized, and potentially, if there is some sort of dieback along the stem itself, there could be evidence of a fungal infection. Just kind of prune it back a little bit beyond where it's expressing itself along that limb. Mine at home, it does have. I've forgotten the name of it now. Persimmon are frequent. It's common for persimmon to get an infection, and there is a splitting of the bark slightly. It's weeping. It's kind of this black oozing that's coming out of it, and this is it's in the trunk. It's not the ancillary. It's not the stems. So I'm just gonna keep nursing it through, and we'll see if it starts to die back this next year. Right now, the rest of the foliage looks fine. But from what I understand, this is not treatable, right? I'm going to have to cut that tree down, but I'm going to wait until it starts to go south a little bit further before I make that action. I'm going to wait till my fruit ripens. Yeah. But I do think it's localized. I don't think it's a disease that can be transmitted from the tree itself. I mean, there's always that potential,
Yeah. Is it, so did you know, what kind of disease it is? Or is it, because there's something that sounds like that. It's like bacterial wetwood that, some trees get kind of randomly. They also call it slime flux.
Yes.
Where it'll cause the tree to start weeping. Yeah. So I didn't know if that was it or if it was something fungal or bacterial. Okay.
No.
See, yeah, exactly. There's so many things it can be.
I'll do the sniff test when I go back.
Okay.
Well, folks, we're almost at the top of the hour. I want to thank Hannah for coming in and being available for us. Of course, we're doing this on a monthly basis every third Thursday. Really delighted that you were able to join us today for this program, as well as talk about the lab and the services that you provide. Is there anything else you'd like to talk to the residents or our listeners about? Quite all right.
Just
how's life?
How's life? Life is great. Life is great. Yeah, I hope everybody's life is good. I hope you're thriving. Your plants, pets, and pipes. I think that's what everybody's worried about in the winter and maybe in the summer. I don't know. That's what you were talking about earlier. You were like, take care of your family.
Even in the summer, if the pipes can burst on you.
Sure. Yeah. Unfortunately. Yeah.
That just happens as well. But I really do thank you for coming in today, Hannah. It's a pleasure to talk to you. I treasure these moments because it's the only time I get to see you at a conference or at the radio program. But thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, folks, this is Garden Success. We're here on a weekly basis every Thursday, starting at noon, high noon, straight up noon. We're a live program, except for when we're not. Of course, I've got an assignment that's going to preclude me from delivering this as a live program this coming Thursday, but I'm really delighted for y'all to join me, and I know that you've gotten at least some more information that you can add to your brain to be able to explore a little further best gardening practices at home. Water conservation is one. That was one of the key messages that we had today. Some of the challenges that we see in the landscape as far as the plants, looking like they're not feeling well. Maybe wilting, maybe there's some sort of spotting on the leaves themselves, a fungal pathogen. In my case, potentially there's a bacterial infection in the persimmon tree. At least we understand what it is to know how to treat it. We don't want you just going out spraying fungicide on your lawn like the gentleman that I talked to yesterday on the phone. We want you to be a little bit more proactive and allow us an opportunity to investigate this with you further so that we can make a determination of how to treat the symptoms, right? So, but 979-845-5689, you can give us a call when we're live on the air. I can't think of anything else at the moment. I know it's really hot. I would really like y'all to please take care of yourselves while you're out in your backyard. If you're camping, you're probably not camping unless you're one of those people. We can talk about that off air. Send me an email to gardensuccess@tamu.edu. I know that you're successful in what you're doing. You can always send me an email or call up when we are live so that we can talk with each other. Even if you don't have problems in your yard, I'd like to talk to you about some of the successes that you've had. Hannah and I talked a little bit about American Beautyberry. Of course, mine is looking fabulous in the backyard. I'm just saying. It's looking great.
No.
But again, thank you all for joining us today. Of course, we'll see you next Thursday. You'll hear us, and we will talk to you next Thursday. I'll see you in the garden.
You've been listening to Garden Success with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension horticulturist Stephen Brueggerhoff. Join us again next week as Stephen discusses your questions about gardening and landscaping in the Brazos Valley.
Garden Success is brought to you in part by Martha's Bloomers. For over 25 years, residents of Central Texas have visited Martha's Bloomers for plants, art and home decor, and a full-service restaurant featuring handcrafted meals and a wide selection of hot teas and desserts. Martha's Bloomers, located on Highway 6 in Navasota.